Thank heaven. This is the last musical in the Warner Brothers box set. Au revoir, Gigi. So Gigi is from 1958, and it's one of the few left that I really know very little about at all. I know it's about a girl in Paris. I know Maurice Chevalier, he is in it. Let us take a look to see what is it about Gigi. I will be doing that for the full review, by the way. Vincent Minnelli's 1958 musical, Gigi. Gigi is a 15-year-old Parisian girl being groomed as a courtesan by her grandmother, Mayanie Gringold, and great-aunt Isabelle Jans. The grandmother's ex-lover, Henri, played by Maurice Chevalier, is advising his 30-year-old nephew, sugar magnate Gaston, Louis Jourdan, in how to live like a rich playboy. But Gaston is perpetually bored of it all. Although Gaston and Gigi have known each other all of their lives, Gaston suddenly realizes that Gigi is becoming a woman, and he is in love with her now. So he makes an arrangement with the old women to buy her as his mistress. At first Gigi refuses, but then, under much duress, tearfully accepts his offer. Later Gaston has bad feelings about the whole thing, so he marries her. And then everything up to that point is okay. And spoilers. The first thing I noticed is how dull this looks. The Blu-ray looks bad. Every time that there's a shift in scene, it even degrades a little and then comes up. The cast is not great. Louis Jourdan is Gaston, and he has all this money and he's bored and it's boring and I'm bored and it's bored. I was bored by his performance. There was not much there. And this guy played Dracula. Hermione Gringold and Isabelle Jans as the grandmother and aunt respectively. They're fine, but there was just nothing really here for them to do. The character I did kind of know was Maurice Chevalier, who plays Henri, who is Gaston's uncle. He's very good and vibrant, but he is also a real pig. And his whole raison d'etre is to be with the most beautiful young women that he possibly can bag or pay for or what have you. Leslie Caron in the title role as Gigi is fine. I wasn't a big fan of her in An American in Paris, but in this one she's pretty cute. She reminds me of kind of the low-rent version of Audrey Hepburn, who they actually wanted for this. But all in all, a fine choice, and you could see why someone would fall in love with her, if she were of age. As far as musicals go, so far the only thing that has kept me going is Gene Kelly and some of the dance numbers. Gene Kelly's not in here, and there is zero dancing. The music is also lackluster. Now this is Lerner and Loewe. They had just come off of the hit of My Fair Lady, and even though this had come from a novel to a play, it had never been a musical. And they talked about that this would run 3 years on Broadway in a movie theater. There's a story that they were missing the title tune for this, and Loewe was at the piano one day, and Lerner was taking care of business in the water closet, heard something on the piano coming from the other room, and said, "That's it," jumped up with his pants around his ankles, and said, "That's the lead song for Gigi." And that's a lame story to go with a lame song. I'm sorry, I can't stress this enough. I hate this movie. And as far as music goes, no one really actually sings very much. It's that very talk sing song. What? Ah, yes, I remember it well. Off-putting. This is barely a musical. This one has, yes, I remember it well. The Night They Invented Champagne, not great, but it was kind of an earworm. Probably the most repulsive, but catchiest is the classic, Thank Heaven for Little Girls, where Maurice Chevalier, he looks at a girl of 5 or 6 or 7 and says, "Thank heaven." Yeah, right? And I understand that this song is not about his attraction to young children, but it is about what they will become, which is his plaything until he gets bored of them when they reach maturity, or at least close enough to. Also, I was stunned by Vincent Minnelli. I gave him such props with American in Paris on how he used his camera and moved. Well, maybe because there was nothing to see with the camera in this one. The dancing, what there was of it, was so lackluster that there was nothing for the camera to do. And apparently, I'm pretty alone in my assessment. Because this thing won awards. It won lots of awards. In fact, it won the most awards in 1959 at the Academy Awards. Gigi won 9 awards. In fact, it won in every category that it was nominated in. This is why the Oscars are a farce. And the next day, MGM answered their phones with MGGM. Gigi came out the same year and won Best Picture in the same year that Orson Welles' Touch of Evil came out. Gigi is taught the ways of the courtesan through this entire film, how to dress, how to give a man a cigar, you roll it, you listen to it, you smell it, and then if it passes muster, you give it to the man. But there's one scene in which Aunt Alicia schools Gigi in the art of eating ortolan. So these small songbirds, they're like finches and sparrows. First you capture them alive, and then they're blinded, forced fed with different grains and millets and all, and then drowned in argmanac. And then they're defeathered and their feet are chopped off. And then they're roasted whole and eaten like that, bones and all, while the diner drapes his head with a linen napkin. Tradition dictates that this is to shield from God's eyes the shame of such a decadent and disgraceful act. And whether they knew it or not, the filmmakers summed up this entire film with that one scene. Gigi is a young girl. She's full of life. She flits around Paris. She brings happiness to everyone who hears her song. She's an innocent, untainted by the Parisian courtesan culture. But she is groomed to be devoured by it. She is taught the ways of the kept woman, blinded to the truth of her fate, and force-fed the lie of the occupied. And whenever she's able, she drowns herself in glasses of champagne and wine. But the men in all of society don't even have the decency to hide their faces from the decadent and disgraceful act, but rather they flaunt it. But what upsets me the most, the thing that weighs on me, is that if this story had been told differently, I would have been fine with it. Probably would have even praised it. My problem with this film is that it's told so delightfully. Everything's done with a happy attitude. I'm a big fan of Stanley Kubrick's Lolita. This is not a direct comparison, but it does have some similar themes. But the difference with that film to this one is that that film says, this is horrible, and the people involved are bad people, and you're probably a bad person for even watching this. It's a comedy that is so pitch black, sometimes you're not sure that it's a comedy. I've heard a few times recently that it's not the story, it's the telling. Gigi made me realize that I will accept the unacceptable as long as I'm entertained, and that kind of bums me out. So, not surprisingly, I'm giving this a fairly low score. 1 out of 5 amazings. I hope never to have to see this film ever again. Next week, Alfred Hitchcock's thriller, North by Northwest. And it's not a musical. So until next time,